Baltimore Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta and head coach John Harbaugh just finished wrapping up their highly anticipated press conferences where they addressed several things going on with the Baltimore Ravens, like the future status for Mark Andrews, how they feel about the allegations against Justin Tucker, and what the deal is with Ronnie Stanley. Is he coming back? Is he going to go? And what's going to happen with him? We're going to talk about all that and more so you can stay up to date with everything going on with our Baltimore Ravens. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on. Also, leave a like on the video because it helps out the channel a ton. I appreciate y'all, team. Keep it clean. I love y'all so much. Thank you for always spending time with us every single day. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, Mark Andrews. We know Mark Andrews has been with the Baltimore Ravens since 2018. Him and Lamar Jackson, they really came into this thing together, and they really started taking off together. And that their connection is crazy. Their chemistry is insane. When you have to pick one Baltimore Raven who Lamar Jackson probably has the most trust for and the most chemistry with, it's got to be Mark Andrews. Throughout the years, a lot of people have come and gone, but Mark Andrews has remained there and stayed the same. Been pretty consistent overall. Mark Andrews has been an excellent player for the Baltimore Ravens, but from Eric DeCosta's words, in my opinion, and I feel like a lot of opinions of other people as well, it sounds like we've seen the last of Mark Andrews with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, nothing is official yet, but with what Eric DeCosta said, it does seem that way. He said the following. He said, Mark Andrews is a great player. Mark will be in the Ring of Honor someday. I love having him on the team. We'll figure out all the roster mechanics in the coming weeks, but nobody is a bigger Mark Andrews fan than me. And you could hear him say that, and I'm sure you watched the press conference, but what got me was when he talked about Mark Andrews, he'll be in the Ring of Honor someday. He's already talking about Mark Andrews as if he is gone from the team already. And with the Baltimore Ravens, they do have some significant decisions to make with the Mark Andrews because, like we've stated this entire offseason, that both Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar too, all of them have 1 year remaining on their contracts. And we know with the Baltimore Ravens that they like to handle business early rather than, in enough cases, rather than handling business later. So we knew that there was going to be a big decision that they were going to have to make with their tight end situation right now. Now, Brian McFarland, he gave us some clarity on the money situation with Mark Andrews if he is potentially moved on from. And he said, things could obviously change, but DeCosta's answer here sounds like a thank you, farewell. Releasing or trading Mark Andrews will create $11 million in much-needed cap space. And that's something that Eric DeCosta talked about as well. He said they looking through the cushions and whatnot of the couches looking for some money. He said they'll take $50K there, $75K there, and it's nice to throw out numbers like that, like they ain't nothing. But anyway, he basically said the Ravens are strapped for cash. They ain't got no money like that. But still, Mark Andrews and them potentially moving on from him, that would be huge. That would be significant. I know so many Ravens fans have said it, especially after that Bills playoff game, said we need to move on from Mark Andrews. We need to let Mark Andrews go. He needs to walk. We need to trade him. We need to get rid of him. Da-da-da-da. But it just hits a lot different when the general manager of the team doesn't necessarily say it, but almost says it without saying it. But we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, again, he did say trading or releasing Mark Andrews will create $11 million in cap space, and that is very, very significant. Now, one thing with Mark Andrews, the Baltimore Ravens, their team, their franchise, they love Mark Andrews. They have a lot of respect for Mark Andrews. They value Mark Andrews. So, in my opinion, if they are going to release Mark Andrews, then I would expect them to do it before the new league year starts. Reason being, because, again, they love him. And they're going to want to allow him to get to his new home ASAP. Now, I think, because if you release Mark Andrews, them Cincinnati Bengals, they got Gesicki, but Gesicki ain't no Mark Andrews, straight up. They could be looking at him. The Steelers could look to, oh, hey, the Ravens, they released you? You want to link up with our guy, Pat Frymouth? You, Mark Andrews, could be a nice. And even the Browns, but I don't think Mark Andrews even wasted time going to the Browns. But for Mark Andrews, if they were to release him, ooh, that's risky business, man. Because you let him go, then he could sign with whoever he wanted to. And imagine, because you can never rule them out, imagine Mark Andrews with a Patrick Mahomes and a Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce's last year of his contract, because they said he's coming back. Well, I mean, we figured he was going to come back. But anyway, just imagine that. And Mark Andrews would be like, oh, man, y'all really do get all the calls over here. But anyway, I think the smarter, more business move for the Baltimore Ravens would be to trade him. Now, I wonder, again, with all the respect and love that they got for Mark Andrews, if they'd be like, hey, we're allowing you to seek a trade partner. And they would, of course, have to agree and sign off on whoever that trade partner was before it became official. But I wonder if they'll handle it that way. But I'm sure for whatever it is, whatever happens with Mark Andrews, they are going to handle it with dignity. They are, while it is a business, and I expect them to move on from Mark Andrews, I still do think that they'll give him some sort of say-so in the whole thing. They'll do something that favors Mark Andrews, even if it's just a bit, because they love him a lot. Lamar loves him a lot. The whole team loves Mark Andrews a lot, despite we know the playoff performances. We know the most recent one, too. But there's still a lot of love for Mark Andrews, but it does still seem like the Ravens are going to be moving on. Now, with this press conference, the part that I was looking forward to hearing from both Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh about, which is why I was really surprised that they spoke separately. I thought they were going to be side by side next to each other, but I was looking forward to seeing what they had to say about the allegations with Justin Tucker. And they both handled them very differently. And I understood why and how they handled them the way that they did. Like for Eric DeCosta, for example, he talked about how the allegations are very serious and concerning, and the amount of allegations are both serious and concerning. And he talked about how the league, they're doing their investigation. He said he spoke to Justin Tucker privately about the matter. He said he's not going to say what happened in those conversations, but he basically said, hey, we're waiting on the league to handle business. We're waiting on the league to do their investigation. And then once that finishes, okay, then we'll move forward with whatever our decision is going to be. Eric DeCosta, he kept it very business with his response about the Justin Tucker allegations. And going into this press conference, while I was interested to hear what both EDC and Harbaugh had to say, I was not expecting too much of anything. I mean, we figured that they were going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to wait for the investigation. But John Harbaugh, with how he spoke about the Justin Tucker allegations, I really appreciated what he had to say. And I know John Harbaugh, I know a lot of people call him a politician because he could say what you want to hear and whatnot. But I did really appreciate what he said, because he was a lot more personal about everything. And I get it, they're allegations, so we don't know if they're true or not. They are strong allegations, they heavy allegations. Like Eric DeCosta said, they're serious allegations, but it's so much that we just don't know. But I appreciated the way that John Harbaugh addressed it. He said the following. He said, that's not something that you want to wake up and read. He said, you don't want to read about it, things that are hurtful and harmful to people. Now, and I just appreciated him even acknowledging that, because he didn't have to. He could have been like, oh, yeah, their allegation. He could have been like, oh, the NFL's handling the investigation. We wait for it. But I did really appreciate him saying that, because if it is true, of course, this is like, that would be very bad, and it would suck to anybody who was potentially or possibly involved in those allegations if they do end up being true. Or if they are true, excuse me. So I did appreciate just him being very personable about that. He said, there's too many headlines like that, too many stories that you hear that make you sad and disappointed. He said, the NFL's looking into it. They're going to review it. They're going to try to gather all the facts, and I'm sure we'll have an understanding of it at that time. And then once there is an understanding of it, then you'll have a chance to make some decisions and determinations. And that's where we're at right now. And Harbaugh did say, like, yeah, they're going to look at kickers. EDC did say, yeah, they're going to look at kickers. He talked about Randy Brown, their kickers coach, and just how they're, even if everything hadn't happened. John Harbaugh said that. He said even if everything hadn't happened with Justin Tucker, he said they will still be evaluating kickers. And it sounded like, let me know if y'all caught this too. It sounded like when John Harbaugh was talking about that, when he was like, oh, yeah, he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, if everything, even if all this hadn't happened with Justin Tucker, then Justin Tucker, and then he's like, oh, well, he can't kick forever. He can't keep going forever, even though we would expect him to. But then he kind of like stopped himself, and it almost sounded like he was gonna slip up and say, okay, well, Justin Tucker ain't gonna be here. We gonna move on from Justin Tucker. But it just sounded like he caught himself before he overspoke on the situation. But again, we'll see what ends up happening. But whatever goes down is going to be very, very significant. It's just a crazy situation. It has, from the jump, it's been a crazy situation. Throughout, it's been a crazy situation. Harbaugh said that he hadn't heard about it until, like, they just did say Eric DeCosta got the heads up from the Baltimore Banner that they were going to be dropping some news on one of the players. And John Harbaugh said that's when he first heard about it. And said it again, it's serious. It's a serious matter. but they'll wait till all the facts come out, and then they'll move accordingly, and we'll see what that move ends up being. Now, we know that the Baltimore Ravens offensive line, it has been getting remixed for the past couple of years, and this year, will it be the same, or will it have more consistency, is to be determined. But Ronnie Stanley is a very, very big part of what this offensive line was this year. And while Ronnie Stanley did have his downs this year, he certainly had way more ups than downs, especially when it came to being healthy. For the first time in his career, he played in every single game. And that's amazing. So the Baltimore Ravens are faced with a significant decision to make when it comes to Ronnie Stanley. What are they going to do? Well, Eric DeCosta, he addressed it, and he said that, hey, we'll be talking to Ronnie Stanley's agent. And he said, I think we'll be able to get something done. And he sounded, and you know Eric DeCosta, he's really a poker face Eric DeCosta. But he sounded like, oh, yeah, we should probably be able to get it done. We're going to talk to this agent, see how it goes, da-da-da-da. But with John Harbaugh, he was like, oh, I think we'll probably keep Ronnie. And the way that John Harbaugh said it with the confidence that he said it with, it was like, oh, man, is Ronnie Stanley already signed to the Ravens or something like that? But get this. This is where I was like, oof. That's something right there, because with Ronnie Stanley, the Ravens, if they're going to get this done, you need to get it done before March 10th. You have to, because Ronnie Stanley, like, and if you don't get it done before March 10th, when the legal tampering period begins, then Ronnie Stanley, the only thing that you'll have at that point is Ronnie Stanley's loyalty. That's the only thing that you'll have to be able to bank on, because other teams are going to offer more money than the Baltimore Ravens. I can guarantee you that. I don't know how much money they will offer Ronnie Stanley. I don't know how much it's going to be, but I guarantee you that there will be some other teams that have more money. They can structure it differently to where Ronnie gets more money up front. There are other teams that will offer him more money. So whatever, if they want to keep Ronnie Stanley, you better get this thing done ASAP before he can even look at other offers, because if he does, then you might be looking for a new left tackle. So now we reach my favorite part of these videos, where we get to feature your questions. If you'd like to take part in it, you can send an email to teamkeepitclean@gmail.com, or for the Team Keep It Clean patrons, you can send your question directly on Patreon. And if you would like to join the patrons, you can go to patreon.com/Ingravenvids. Let's get into our first question that came from Maliboy. He said, thank you for answering my last question. No problem. Thank you for even sending it in. I appreciate that. He said, I appreciate everything you do. I have another question concerning the Baltimore Ravens. I feel that this year we have a complete roster, but there's always room for improvement. Of course, Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh will try to add even more talent through free agency, but another way to add talent would be through the NFL draft. Oh, yeah, that's true. And that talent is younger, oftentimes cheaper, depending on when the draft is and whatnot, or when that player is drafted. But yeah, that is another way. He said, I've looked through a couple of mock drafts, and most people have us taking an edge rusher or an offensive tackle. With Pat McCary and Ronnie Stanley heading into free agency, I feel like offensive line is a necessity. Although I would be fine adding an elite edge rusher to the lineup. Which position or player do you think the Ravens should go after in the draft? That's a really, really good question. So much of that depends on who they keep and who they let go. We were just talking about Ronnie Stanley. If they keep him, then I feel like offensive line is a little bit less of a concern, because obviously you would have your left tackle. So you would have Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. You would have your center, Tyler Linderbaum. You would have your right guard, Daniel Falele. Then you have your right tackle, Roger Rosengarten. If that is your offensive line, then the two most questionable spots that you have at that point are at guard. So your left guard is a vacancy, and your right guard is Falele. So if you're going to stick with Falele, which most likely the Baltimore Ravens will, then that left guard would need to be addressed. You can go through free agency. You can go through the draft. You got options. And I feel like having a need at guard is a better issue to have, or a better problem to have, than having a need at tackle. So we'll see what happens with Ronnie Stanley with that. But really, the draft is about just filling out that roster. Just trying to make that roster as strong as you possibly can for the right here, right now, and also for the future. In my opinion, for the Baltimore Ravens, they need an impactful draft. You can't, I mean, not that you can't take projects, but guys ready right here, right now. If, say, for instance, Ronnie Stanley does stay, maybe their focus at that point, and they do always talk about BPA, but it's still about need as well. Because, say, for instance, you sitting at 27, and the best player available is a quarterback, Ravens are not going to take a quarterback in round 1, pick 27. No, they're not going to do that. So while it is about BPA, it's also about your team needs. So an edge rusher, just somebody who just is ready right here, right now. I think that's very, very important. Not a project player. Even in the first round, I think Ravens did that with Odafe away, and he's been turning the corner recently, which is great. But I think at edge, the Ravens need somebody like that just will go crazy from jump. Even, in my opinion, even if you see somebody dropping and you know, like, oh, that guy's like that, how is he? You know what? Let's move up. Let's move up to go get him. Let's move up to go get him. So you'll need edge rushers. We'll see what happens with the Ravens at the cornerback position, but that's not as a pressing need that the offensive line will be if Ronnie Stanley doesn't go. But again, to answer your question again, so much just depends on what happened with who the Baltimore Ravens keep, but also who they let go. Next question came from my guy, Eric. He said, Taysom Hill to the Ravens? He said, what's going on, Ingraven? It's been a while since I sent you a question. I thought I sent a question or complaint after the Eagles game, but I think I forgot to click send, LOL. Hey, that happens to a lot of people. It really does, but it's all good. I guess you was just so heated from that Eagles and Ravens game that you were like, oh, we just got beat up on by these Eagles. My goodness. And your mind couldn't even function right. So I get it. But anyway, he said 2 quick questions. Number 1, I read an article a few days ago that suggested Taysom Hill could be a cap casualty of the New Orleans Saints. The article also listed the Baltimore Ravens as a possible fit. What are your thoughts? Taysom Hill, gadget guy. He just a football player. He's not a quarterback. He ain't a tight end. He ain't a running back. He's just a football player. Straight up. So he does a lot of different things. And he will be somebody that the Ravens, the way that they play, I'm sure they could find a fit for Taysom Hill, have him on them gadget plays, have him on. They will do some stuff with him. Because I can't call him, he's obviously not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Devin Duvernay. He's not a Zay Flowers. He's not a Mark Andrews. He does a lot of things well. He's sort of like a jack of all trades. That's what I'm gonna call it. He's a jack of all trades. So they could do that. They could bring him in. But I don't feel like that would be the biggest boost for their team if they brought in a Taysom Hill. I don't feel like that would be the best use of money, and not that he would be crazy expensive. Well, if he was crazy expensive, then I would definitely say no. But I feel like if they were to do that, if the Saints moved on from him, then if he's still there in like the 2nd, 3rd wave of free agency, okay, whatever. But I ain't gonna be clamming, bring in Taysom Hill right now, get him here to the Ravens right now. No, I just don't think it's like that. He said, I personally don't think he's an upgrade over the 3 tight ends currently on the team. Well, could be 2 in a little bit, but we'll see. Or an upgrade at the backup QB position. I would be on board with a signing if he was a vet minimum signing as a special team gimmick. See, same page. We're on the same page. We ain't clamoring for Taysom Hill to come join the Ravens, but yeah, I get you. And he said, number 2, I'm typing this email. Ooh, good timing. He said, I'm typing this email as I was listening to John Harbaugh's combine presser. When Harbaughh was asked about JT, I was surprised that he did not dance around a question with a word salad, but I came away more convinced that JT has played his last game as a Raven. I know Harbaugh said they were looking at kickers even before the JT news broke, but I thought that was just a smokescreen. What are your thoughts? See? Yeah. And again, I agree as well, because and we talked about this before the presser, that we knew the Ravens were getting addressed. They were going to get asked about this question. I think for Eric DeCosta, his press conference, it was the 3rd question that got asked. So it's like the people that were there at the presser, the reporters and stuff, it's like the first question they waited. Then the second question they still waited. Then they were like, all right, JT time. Let's ask about Justin Tucker. Boom. But I did appreciate, like I said earlier, how John Harbaugh addressed it. Because like I said, I loved how he made it very personable. Could he have been just saying that? But he could have actually meant it too. And I think this is something like very, very serious. And another thing too, with Eric DeCosta, while he does get personal with the players, because Eric DeCosta, while he is a general manager, he got to be business first. He does still got love for the players. You form a relationship with these players and whatnot. But John Harbaugh as a head coach is different, because while John Harbaugh is involved in the business side of the Baltimore Ravens, he's involved a lot with the players every single day, talking to them, coaching them up, being involved. And he's a head coach, so he's involved with everybody on the 53, everybody on the practice squad. John Harbaugh has his hand in everything. So with that being said, you know that he has a deep relationship with a lot of these players. But then at the same time, it's like, hey, like it sort of reminds me like of a parent. And again, the allegation, so we don't know what happened. But as a parent, depending on the parent, because every parent is different. But it's like, hey, you love your kids, you love them with everything. But if they doing wrong, then you gotta address it. You still gotta address it. And if they doing something wrong to somebody else, you feel for the person who they doing something wrong to, because even though that's your kid, you love it. You don't want your kid to do something wrong to somebody else. Now, again, I'm not saying that Justin Tucker did do something wrong or he didn't, because we just do not know. But the way that John Harbaugh handled it, it reminded me sort of a parent. He said, well, take care. You are truly a bright light to me on a daily basis with your content. I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Thank you. That was a real special comment. I appreciate that, man. I really do. And he said, sorry for the long-winded questions. No, these were not long-winded questions at all. But I appreciate you sending them in.